Be Frankie.
Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy B-Dale. If you're new to this channel, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. But today we're going to be talking about how the cosmic energy grid destabilizes the sanctification process of the transformation of the soul, and how the cosmic clock has the ability to reverse the polarity of a sleep spell that's connected to the neurological clock. Now, all this is based on mind science technology by way of the activation of the carbon that's extracted from the neuromelanin, right? So before we get into the presentation, you have to understand the dynamics of geomancy that's coming from the mythology of the Archonic forces that's connected to the arts of Gnosticism, right? Because one thing you got to understand about the Archonic forces are basically the progenitors of the disagreeable Elohim that gave birth to the 24 paternal and maternal Archons that control the 24,000-year equinox, right? So the Archonic forces, when it tells you right here verbatim that they prevent souls from leaving the material plane, because the material plane is basically connected to the holonomic brain theory. Because it's like there's a conscious energy grid over the planet, there's a conscious energy grid over your neurological faculties, right? Because the Archonic forces, they are basically the rulers and the lords of the lower third dimension and the lower fourth dimension, right? Because they are basically the physical builders of the holographic universe, right? So you got to understand that dynamic, because when it comes to geomancy, right? Geomancy is when you have certain monolithic structures that is being controlled by certain ley line grid systems, because the ley line grid system is also known as the net of Indria. The net of Indria is also known as the Draconian reptilian net, right? That was created by the Archonic forces. So when you're looking at this net, this is based upon geomancy, right? Where you have a configuration of certain ley lines that's built on certain monolithic structures, right? We're going to get into that, because these ley line grid systems is being used as a form of a soul trap. It's a soul trap mechanism to basically keep you in a perpetual state of reincarnation, which is a lunar light lock energy. It locks down your genetical structure. So just like there's a ley line grid system over the planet, there's a ley line grid system over your neurological faculties, right? As above, so below. So this is based upon the global atmosphere circulation, which is basically the cosmic intertropical convergence zone that is made up of the brain cells of planet Earth, which is a polar cell, Furrow cell, and a longitude cell, and a Hadley cell. And these cells are basically neurologically connected to the simulation, because when you understand the demonstration aspect of subatomic energy, that means that your neurotransmitters is tether connected to the simulation and is tether connected to the quantum world at the same time, right? So these cells is comprised of a convergence zone, right? And that convergence zone is acclimated to the neurological clock, which is the suprachiasmatic nucleus that extracts melanocytes. Melanocytes is extracted from the neuromelanin. Neuromelanin is the brain and central nervous system melanin that basically makes up the fascia system, which is the electrical energy that basically coats your energetic morphic field, right? Because it puts out light vibrations and it sends in light vibrations in order to upgrade the physiology to break free from the mental matrix, which is the conscious energy grid system that's tethered connected to the energy grid system over the planet, what you're looking at right now. So that means that the great majority of humans on the planet have a cap consciousness, which is basically the vesicular monomind transporter 2 gene, which is also known as the VMOT2 gene, right? Meaning that it basically gives you the propensity to believe in things outside of yourself that's connected to the material plane that was created by the archonic forces. Hold on. That was created by the archonic forces, right? Because it tells you right here, the archons, the builders of the physical universe. So this is basically a loose form. This is why we call it the energy extraction matrix, because the energy extraction matrix is made up of microscopic subatomic particles that sucks the life force out of you, right? And the archons feed on that energy. So this is why they want to merge humans with cybernetics, because the extraction of technological radiation pulls the neurons from the body and it uploads it into a neuromorphic cyber cloud. So this is why the archonic forces need your energy, right? They need it because it's connected to the conscious energy grid, which is connected to your neurological grid, and you break free from the simulation mentally by way of the suprachiasmatic nucleus. That is the clock in the brain that works in conjunction with the 24,000 year equinox, which is also known as the cosmic clock. So you got a clock in the brain and you have a cosmic clock. You have a grid over the planet, you have a grid over the brain. But when you break free from the simulation, this is basically the art of detachment, right? So this is where, stimulation and habitation, when you have full spectrum light solidified, that basically collapses the photon light spectrum, right? Meaning you have to basically deviate from the simulation and the dualistic paradox of it. And the reason you have to deviate from the dualistic paradox is operated by way of right knowledge. Right knowledge is the epitome of righteousness. Righteousness is activated by the Christ consciousness that's coming from right brain thinking, which is comprised of the right hemisphere, right? You can't become holy until you become a whole brain thinker, right? Father, Son, Holy Ghost. This is why when you graduate college, you take the tassel and you switch it over. That means you raised up a degree. That means that you raise it up in frequency that's connected to your neurological faculties, right? This is the science that they basically subjugate from humanity, because it all works in conjunction with the celestial bodies, right? That controls the simulation by way of the archonic forces, right? So the conscious energy grid destabilizes. So when you activate the Christ consciousness, that's when you get away from the neurological grid system, because there's a clock within the simulation that's connected to the Doomsday clock. We finna get into that as we get through the presentation. So you have a Doomsday clock, and you have a clock in the brain, and you have a clock over the planet, and the clock is basically supposed to dematerialize these ley line grid systems. This is why the great majority of people are not able to tap into their higher abilities, right? And once you break free from the simulation, this is where you connect to the original biorhythm and the circadian rhythm of the planet, right? Because there are certain times and days where you're supposed to be doing certain things. Just like from the hours from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., that's when the sun produces B12 gamma radiation, right? Which is basically a detoxifier. That detoxifier is extracted by way of the melanocytes, right? And those melanocytes are basically the cousin to chlorophyll. So it's basically cleaning the body as you ground yourself in nature. So you have to tap back into the Fibonacci sequence of nature in order to break free from the matrix system, because the more you have these gamma radiations coming in by the star Polaris, where you see at the top where my cursor is, the star Polaris, because it went from the Alpha Draconis star constellation, right? Transmuted to the star Polaris. Star Polaris is in alignment with the autumn equinoxial point of Aquarius. So that's when you see the number 24, right? The number 24 is acclimated to 24 hours in a day. 24 hours in a day is basically the circadian rhythm of the simulation, but you got to break free from that energy. So you got the 24,000 year equinox, right? As we transmuted from the Alpha Draconis star constellation from the age of Pisces. This is a clock over the planet, and that clock is tether connected to your neurological faculties, right? That's why you have a clock in the brain. So When the system resets, your neurological faculties reset along with the system, right? So even when you look at it from the arts of Hinduism, right? When you look at the truth age, the truth age basically embarks the energy of electrical energy that stagnates the dark energy of the archonic forces. So now we're in the age of light. The age of light is facilitated by the age of Aquarius, 24,000 year life cycles on Earth. So this is the last reincarnation cycle, right? As I told you before in the live. So the cosmic clock is actually the precessional circle of the equinox that is operated in 6,000 year increments of 4 that equates to 24,000 years. So you had a sun cycle, then 2 lunar cycles, then you got a sun cycle. So this is why I said the demo system of democracy that's connected to patriarchy in the energy of the moon, you can't have democracy in a sun cycle, right? That's basically breaking universal law, right? So with that being said, the cosmic clock is reversing the polarity by making the indigenous people and the chosen one and the chosen souls connect to the density of nature, right? So by way of ontological artifacts, when you study the arts, it's been showing you how there's a cosmic clock over the planet, right? So I'm not making this up. By way of the doctrine of signatures of ontological artifacts, it's showing you that there is a cosmic clock over the planet, which is basically the epitome of the reset system. So the system has to reset, but the system cannot reset until you reset your mental faculties, right? That's why I say you have a clock in the brain, which is the suprachiasmatic nucleus that extracts melanocytes. Those melanocytes extract neuromelanin. Neuromelanin is the brain essential nervous system melanin that makes up the nervous system that's connected to the fascia system, just like Yaki Awakening said, right? Which contains the electrical energy that basically controls the light force energy of magnetism that connects you to the space-time continuum. So when you have that ability, by way of breaking free from the cosmic clock of the matrix system, you unlock the 7th seal in the brain that is acclimated to the chakra system, right? Which is your 7 energy cortexes that push you in alignment to receive these energies to break free, right? And when you break free, when you look at the arts, you know what I'm saying? A picture is worth 1,000 words or 1,000,000 words, right? So when you look at, when you're talking about the book of Genesis, it's talking about the heavens and the firmament. The firmament is tether connected to the grid system, right? It's tether connected to the cosmic energy grid system, right? Which is also known as the draconian reptilian net, soul trap mechanisms. So that is basically the hexahedron that stagnates the dodecahedron, which is the 5th element. The 5th element dematerializes the grid system. The 5th element is ether. And that 5th element, you see the guy right here, he is breaking free from the simulation because the dome in itself, the firmament, is the epitome of a hexahedron, which is a form of a lunar light lock energy, right? That is being trapped by the energy of the moon, which is why you see the moon right here within the simulation of the stars. So you cannot get to the real world until you break free from the simulation. So he's breaking free at the bottom. So when you break free, it happens by way of the activation of the neuromelanin that produces ether by way of the gamma radiation from the star Polaris when the cosmic clock resets, right? So that's why I said the 24,000 year equinox, because the 24,000 years is acclimated to the doctrine of signatures of time, which is 24 hours in a day. But that's why I said we are trapped in time. When you're trapped in time, you're trapped in an artificial time analysis mechanism. You're stuck in a time loop because the time is being controlled by the energy grid system. This is a form of soul entrapment, right? That works in conjunction with Saturn and the moon. That's why they call it the Saturn moon matrix, right? So now all this happens, you break free from the simulation just like this guy right here at the bottom, because the year of 2025 is the epitome of the 9-year, and the 9-year is equated to finality, and finality is activated by way of the cosmic serpent, and the cosmic serpent is basically the Kundalini energy that strikes the pineal gland in the year of 2025, right? The year of 2025 represents completion of the draconic forces, right? So that's how you have to delineate a draconian from the serpentine energy. The serpentine energy is within your physiology that's connected to your chakra system, right? So it's not a coincidence that the year 2025 is basically the foundational blueprint to the 9-year. So in numerology, the number 9 is the highest single digit and represents completion rather than finality, because number 9 is the highest number in the universe, right? So that means that the simulation is going to be completed by way of the year of 2025, right? So whatever the dark priesthood of the oligarchic forces and the white hats and the black hats, whatever these deep state entities got to do, they got to do it before the year of 2025, because the Lionsgate portal that just happened a couple weeks ago or a week ago, it basically reversed the polarity of the system. So that means that they have to, whatever they got to do before the election, it has to happen. So prepare for what is to come. Because like I said, the year 2025 is the year of the serpent. The year of the serpent is in the 9-year, which equates to finality. So that means that the consciousness on the planet is going to raise up by way of the cosmic serpent, right? The cosmic serpent, where you activate certain codons within your genetical structure, right? So this the Kundalini energy, the Kundalini spirit that connects you to the space-out continuum that is activated by way of the feminine energy, which is the activation of the X gene, which turns you into an X-man, to where you get those mental powers, right? By way of the cosmic clock reversing the polarity of the neurological clock. Everything has to reset by way of going into 0-point energy. Now, when you look at the hexadecimal number of the third eye chakra system, it all shows you the number 24, because the number 24, when you look at my cursor, the number 24 is connected to the simulation of the cosmic clock. When you look at the 24,000-year life cycles, and you got a 24,000-year equinox. So that means that you deviate from the hexadecimal number of the third eye chakra system is when you have your physiology in alignment to receive these energies to upgrade your neurological faculties that's connected to the holonomic brain theory, right? Because, like I said, your neurological faculties is tethered connected to the quantum world and the simulation at the same time, right? That's why it's hard for a lot of people to wake up. So this is also connected to the hexadecimal number of the third eye chakra system when you're talking about the 144,000 chosen ones, right? So that means that the cosmic convergence of the 144,000, the consciousness of the gamma radiation is going to produce a form of ether that's basically going to collapse the time of the energy grid system over your mind and over the planet. So the more people wake up, the more the ley line grid system dematerializes to where we no longer are trapped in time. Because even when you look at 144,000, 1 + 4 + 4 = 9, and the 9 ether is going to be activated in the year 9 of 2025. And what is 9 ether? 9 ether is basically the epitome of antimatter. Antimatter that's comprised of electrical energy, thermodynamics, hydrodynamics, electromagnetic radiation, and resonant energy. So you receive that resonant energy by way of the fifth element that merges in with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which are the 4 basic elements of earth, air, water, fire, right? So the more you wake up, it's going to wake up the planet, right? Because you got to wake up here first. The cosmic clock has to reset by way of the clock inside the brain. So when you wake up, the planet wakes up, right? To where you no longer are trapped in time. That's why it's the 24. The 24 is us being stuck in chronology, right? Which is where that's why the simulation is being controlled by archonic force of Chronos. Chronos comes from the word chronology. We're trapped in time. This is why you have 24 hours in a day when you look at the hexadecimal number, because the 24 hours in a day is activated by way of the suprachiasmatic nucleus. That's the clock in the brain. So when the system reset, you reset too, right? So Now, this is also acclimated to the scroll of all. The scroll of all is also known as your scroll. All right, put it like this. You got the 7 tablets of destiny, which is your chakra system. Your chakra system is the scroll of all. The scroll of all is basically the doctrine of signatures that's connected to your physiology. So the scroll of all and the 7 tablets of destiny is not necessarily a book. It's basically a book within your epigenetics that's connected to your DNA. So that means that everything's in you, right? You are the book. We don't need books. As I was telling you before, books are basically a catalyst for knowledge, right? So that means that, you're not supposed to every book is not meant to be read. You're supposed to use it for researchful purposes because everything is within your genetical structure and your DNA. Because when you have a DNA enhancement, when the grid system dematerializes, right? This is when you upgrade your physiology. You upgrade your scroll of all. You upgrade your 7 tablets of destiny, which is the 7 seal. So when the grid shuts down, and the grid in the brain, the clock in the brain shuts down, that's when you unlock the 7 seal, right? When you look at the chakra system by way of the cosmic serpent, which is the Kundalini feminine energy, you unlock that crown chakra. That's the 7 seal, right? And 7 seal is activated by way of the non-ether. So that's why I said the scroll of all is within your genetics when you unlock certain things by way of the cosmic clock, right? Which is basically the serpentine wisdom. And the serpentine wisdom happens by way of the lightning flash of creation, which is the zigzag zig energy that's connected to the 13 crystal skulls, which is basically the foundational blueprint of the 13 aeons, right? Because the 13 is the representation of the feminine energy that's connected to a restoration of the matriarch by way of a cosmic convergence, by way of the activation of certain chakra systems, right? It's a consciousness that's going to unlock certain things. So that's why they had to remove that video when I was talking about the 13 crystal skulls, because the 13 crystal skulls are the 13 aeons. The 13 aeons is connected to your chakra system, which is basically the interconnectedness of the flower of life, which is basically the cycle of creation when you understand the sacred geometry, right? So that's why when you look at right here, the flower of life, it shows you the chakra system. Because when you break free from the simulation, when you break free from the cosmic energy grid, and when that clock in the brain resets, when you break free from this, you also break free from the simulation, just like this guy, by way of the Kundalini activation in the year of 2025, the 9-year. The 9-year is the year of completion, which is finality. And it happens by way of the cosmic serpent, by raising your Kundalini energy with the feminine energy that activates the third eye chakra system of the hexadecimal number that is equated to the 144,000. 1 plus 4 plus 4 equals 9. 9 ether. 9 ether activates the 7 tablets of destiny, which is the book within you. The book within you activates the epigenetics and the codons to where you activate the serpentine wisdom of the lightning flash creation of zigzag zig that's connected to the 13 aeons of the 13 crystal skulls, which is not an actual monolithic structure. It's a consciousness that basically collapses the photon light grid system of the cosmic energy. So that's activated by way of the flower of life, which is a representation of interconnectedness of all things in creation that's connected to the Fibonacci sequence of nature. So that's why when you look at this sigil right here, it's showing you the body in a state of death, right? The body's in a state of death is because you have the Leviathan serpent around the lunar energy. And notice you see the silver key at the bottom. The silver key is basically the symbology factor of the lunar frequency, because the moon is a lunar like frequency when you understand that the moon is an artificial celestial megastructure that basically extracts the energy of humans and uploads it into a neuromorphic cyber cloud. So that's why you see the Leviathan serpent, the Leviathan dragon around the lunar lock key, which is also known as the silver key. That's what the representation of the moon, right? Because the moon works in conjunction with the hexahedron energy of the planet that basically subjugates the flower of life that's connected to your chakra system, right? So there's a force field over the planet, which is the hexahedron, which is basically the epitome of locking down DNA. And it's made up of subatomic particles that are basically microscopic waves of energy that pulls the life force out of you. That's connected to the material plane. So that's why I said we live in a pixelated simulation that's made up of planks, which are basically pixels, right? So that's why I said religion, everything. When you look at the bottom right here, you see the crucifix. Then you got the so-called the sigil of I think it's the Star of David. Yeah, the Star of David. When you look at the cube, it's a representation of the cube of Saturn, right? So this is all connected to the Olympian spirits. Because this, what you're looking at, this sigil right here, this is not an actual seal. It's basically telling you the story on how the Archons control the simulation. So you got the celestial bodies of Saturn, the moon, the sun, and things of that nature. But outside of that, there's a hexahedron over the planet that is being controlled by the 7 Olympian spirits that basically are being controlled by the Archonic forces when you look at the sigils around this seal right here. So that's why it's important to understand that when you break free from the simulation, you break free from the 24 Fibonacci sequence of the digital root that basically repeats the zodiac wheel of the cycle, because the zodiac wheel of the cycle is equated to 360 degrees of knowledge. 3 + 6 = 9. 9 is activated by way of the non-ether activation, and 9 is basically control of everything in the universe. That is the sequence of nature, to where energy expands and returns to itself, to where you unlock the cosmic keys of the 3, 6, and the 9, right? So that is basically the epitome of the sanctification process on how to transform the soul by way of the flower of life, right? So where you're no longer in a state of death when you look at the lunar lock with the silver key at the bottom, right? Notice you see 6-9 right here. 6-9, they show that in the movie Leave the World Behind, because you're going from a frequency. It's a frequency switch, right? Which is going from 6 ether to 9 ether. 9 ether is going to collapse the grid. That's why in the movie Leave the World Behind, the grid system collapsed and all those airplanes basically crashed, right? Because there was a frequency on the planet that basically dematerialized the grid system that controls all technological devices. Because as I was telling you before, technology locks down DNA. This is why a lot of people are not able to tap into those metaphysical powers, right? So that's why the girl in the movie Leave the World Behind, she had that 6-9 on her arm, right? It was tattooed on her arm because it's a representation by going from 6 ether to 9 ether. 6 ether, patriarchy. 9 ether, a republic. 6 ether, the moon. 9 ether, the sun. You see what I'm saying? Because the sun, it basically activates the Christ consciousness. 6 ether subjugates the Christ consciousness. Now, so that's the sanctification process of the activation of the soul, right? So when you activate the soul, because one thing you got to understand about the Roman occupational government, it was created in 1776, which is basically an infinite number of 888. We just came out of the Lionsgate portal. And when you go through the Lionsgate portal, right, that is basically collapsing the time of the beast system, because the beast system was created in 1776, which basically transmuted the republic into a form of patriarchy that created a demo system of a corporation, right? So that's why I said you got to understand that metaphysics and politics go hand in hand, because it's operated by way of occultic science. So when you tap into these energies, right, of the non-ether, it collapses the corporate system that was created in 1776. And it's going to happen in the year 2025. So that's why I said the Lionsgate portal set the tone and the frequency for the year of 2025 to activate the non-ether energy. 2 plus 2 plus 5 = 9 ether. So this is why you have in Chattanooga, you know, during the time when everybody was traveling to Atlanta for the gathering of the masses, that's why the energy at gathering the masses was so potent. You know what I'm saying? You had to be there. You know what I'm saying? The place had a lot of AC, but the energy in that building was so high. It was a high frequency event. It raised up the frequency, the energy, because you had these new energies that basically collapses the time of the 6 ether, as I was telling you, right? because it took us to a different time loop. It was a timeline jump, right? It took us to a different space-time continuum, but to where it basically created a interface transition within the simulation. So this was called in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and it shows you these portals that was opening up as you had the Lionsgate portal, because that portal, what, like I said, was the segue energy for the year of 2025, which is basically the final countdown to the simulation that's connected to the cosmic energy grid in the cosmic clock that resets everything. So this is where you get your whole concept of a reset when people are talking about the Great Reset, right? And that Great Reset is activated in the year 2025. So that's why I said whatever these government factions got to do, the Roman occupational government, whatever they got to do it right before the year of 2025. So that's why, you can be rational and say that it might not be an election. You could say that, right? So when you activate these energies, when you look at this hexadecimal number at the top, it shows you in the middle the 144,000, because the golden key represents the energy of the sun, the solar energy, and the silver key represents the lunar lock frequency of the lunar cycle that's controlled by patriarchy. So when you look at the top right here, you see a crucifix, but the crucifix, by way of Western doctrine of signatures, this represents non-ether, right? According to their mythologies. But we know the crucifix is basically an energy of dead energy, right? But by way of how they propagate certain things within their monotheistic arts, they're basically talking about the activation of the 144,000 that basically collapses the sun simulator and the moon simulator. So that's why I said the year 2025, right? When you look at the middle right here, you're going from 6 ether to 9 ether. 6 ether was being controlled by the year 1776, which was basically the inception of the de facto corporation of democracy under the demo system that was created by the secret treaty of Verona. And then you have the year 2025, which is equated to 9 ether when you see the 9 right here and the 6, because that's when you activate the Kundalini energy of the cosmic serpent, right? I hope y'all getting y'all notes out, man, because this is a lot of information. So when you activate that 9 ether, this is where the system collapses. Why I keep doing that? This is where the system collapses, right? This is where the Roman occupational government basically collapses. The house of cards have to collapse, because by way of eschatology, the science of the end times, this is prophetic divination that must take place by ending the simulation, right? So like I said, 2025 is equated to the number 9. It collapses everything to where you're no longer under the jurisdiction of the false government. So it's not a coincidence that Trump is coming out with the red folder. The red folder is basically a representation of a presidential state of emergency that has classified documents. So it basically is connected to executive orders and proclamations that basically overrides Congress. So I'm going to show you this video of Donald Trump with the emergency declaration of the FEMA system and NATO. He's signing something out of the red folder, right? Because one thing you got to understand about the occultic science of symbology and certain color spectrums, red is also equated to the number 9, right? You can't make this up. The number 9 is connected to the color spectrum of red, because that's when you have a state of emergency. That is only happening because you have the frequency rising on the planet by way of the non-ether energy. The more conscious the planet gets, the more it basically compromises the government factions, right? And they know this. This is why they're giving you the red folder.
So, do I sign this here? It's already signed. Looks like it's pretty well signed. here. Unless you go, unless you can.
Yep.
Great delegate, Steve. If you could hold that up for everybody to see. Which one? Okay. We'll do it.
Can't make this up, man. And you know, like I said, the receipts be receipting, and I'm going to show you the receipts that basically supports my claim. Talking about the occultic science of the red folder, right? He's speaking. This is all symbology. This is all symbology. This is basically occultic symbolism. They're speaking to each other by way of symbolism. That's why I said symbolism is going to be their downfall. So like I said, once again, Illuminati, I'm on to you. I'm on to you. I'm going to find out. I'm going to do the research. I'm going to find out every time. So what does the color red mean? The color red, when you study the Homeland Security Advisory System, red means severe risk of terrorist attacks. Now, there's a video I put out a year and a half ago that basically talks about how you have to basically delineate. Is it going to be an EMP or a CME that's going to shut down the grid system, right? Because we all know that this is basically the final stage on how they're basically going to collapse the simulation, or where these coronal mass ejections by way the activation of the consciousness. The consciousness is when you have these solar flares hitting the planet and it upgrades your physiology. When it upgrades the physiology, it unlocks the seventh seal. That seal is over the brain and the seal is over the planet, and that is the draconian reptilian net by way of the non-ether activation. So that's why I said you have to basically delineate. Is it going to be an EMP or a CME that's going to knock out the grid to where it's going to cause the reset over the planet and the reset over the mind, right? Because like I said, you have a clock in the brain that works in conjunction with the cosmic clock, right? So that's why I said the number 9. The year 2025 is also connected to the number 9. The number 9 is associated with planet Mars, right? And the planet Mars, which is basically the Roman god of war, right? The Roman god of war, when you study the doctrine of signatures of Greek mythology. So the 9 is also equated to red and pink. So like I said, the number 9 is associated with red, the red folder. The red folder is basically the Roman god of war, right? Which is Mars. So it's basically a mirror flip energy, right? So that's why it tells you right here, when you're talking about the collapse of a system, when you read the Kabbalah, the harmony of opposites, right? It is basically talking about the reversing of the polarity of the Euclid system, which is the queen mother seat of the restoration of the matriarch by way of the 13. So you have it says right here verbatim that Rome or Babylon will fall to pieces. A mighty king will arise and conquer the world. When you're talking about your so-called Messianic figure, your Messianic figure is not an actual certain person. It's a certain consciousness. It's the 144,000. The 144,000 is basically a certain demographic that's going to activate the magnetites and the dendrites in the brain, which are basically the 144,000 crystals that activates the non-ether. So that Messianic figure is not actually it's not one person, right? It's a consciousness, right? Because when you break down the etymology of the word Messiah, you get the word Messi. Messi means to be anointed. You can only be anointed by way of the activation of the Christ energy by way of your neurological faculties. So that's why I said that 144,000, right? When you look at the hexadecimal number, it's the activation and by unlocking the 7th seal, right? You unlock the 7th seal because the hexadecimal number of 24 is connected to the 24,000-year equinox, 24 hours in a day. We are trapped in time. So you unlock the 7th seal. You unlock the clock in the brain that works in conjunction with the cosmic clock. Reset, right? This is what you're talking about, reset. So the Messianic figure, when you have the galvanization of the 144,000 by way of the cosmic convergence, this is where you have the manifestation process by transmuting energy when you're talking about the sacred dove. The dove is a representation that's connected to your neurological faculties, right? Because you basically go from lead to gold, you go from heaven to hell mentally, right? So that's why it tells you right here it's 90 seconds to midnight when you look at the doomsday clock. Because when you look at the number 90, there's no such thing as the number 90, right? Because 9 is the highest number in the galaxy, it's the highest number in the universe. So when you see the number 90, it's 9 and 0, right? So it's basically showing you that it's 90 seconds to midnight, because when you activate the non-ether by way of the year of 2025, which is the 9 year, that's when the reset happens. Midnight. The cosmic clock resets. You can't make this up. So this is why they're canceling tours, right? Something is about to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I do know for a fact it has something to do with the doomsday clock that is in conjunction with the cosmic clock, and the cosmic clock is in conjunction with the neurological clock, because when you unlock the seventh seal, it collapses everything. So this is why, during that time period of the year of 2019 and 2020, during that time period, we was all on lockdown, right? And they canceled tours right before we was on lockdown because of the draconian juice and things of that nature. So this is basically a repeating cycle because they know something's about to happen, right? So is there a catastrophe ahead? See, all these people, Usher, Rod Stewart, OMD, Aerosmith, Fugees, Sneaky Puppy, Single Mothers, Heart, Chief Keef, Bruce Hornsby, Benson Boone, Ann Wilson, Neil Young, Crazy Horse. All these people are basically Missy Elliott, the Queen of the Stone Age. All these people are basically postponing their tours, right? So like I said, so it's not a coincidence that, when you have a system collapsing, it is all connected to the electrical grid system that controls all technological devices. That's why I said you got to stay off these airplanes, right? Now, there's exceptions to the rule when you're traveling. Travel for networking purposes, or if it's not for networking purposes, business or family, don't just get on the airplane just because you want to have a vacation. If you can't drive to that destination, then just don't go. You know what I'm saying? Don't just be so caught up into egotism to where you want to, catch a flight, you know what I'm saying, and not understanding that you got kids at home. You know what I'm saying? Because your children need you, right? So you got, many different crashes that happen in Brazil. I ain't gonna show that video because they starting to subjugate those videos. And I'm too far into the presentation, I think. So yeah, now I got this video is connected to everything I'm saying. So something has got to happen because they got to make something happen before the year of 2025, because the Lionsgate portal set the tone and the frequency to activate the non-ether, right? So you go from 888 activation that activates the non-ether, and the non-ether transmutes back to the 7, which is the 7th seal of the chakra system. So that's why I said they know that their simulation is crumbling, right? And the simulation is being controlled by Archonic forces, who controls the infrastructure of the political factions that controls NATO and things of that nature. So this is why this guy is saying certain things in this video.
You need to have water, you need to have a radio on batteries, and you need to have a flashlight on batteries to make sure that you can survive the first 36 hours. Things like that. That's simple things.
See, I'm going to play it again.
You need to have water, you need to have a radio on batteries, and you need to have a flashlight on batteries to make sure that you can survive the first 36 hours. Things like that. That's simple things.
See, like I said, symbology. He said 36 hours. 3 + 6 = 9. Like I said, the doctrine of signatures of how they propagate themselves in government, this is all occultic science. You got to understand their symbolism in order to understand what's going on, right? They can't trick you if you understand their science, if you understand their symbolism. They can't trick you, right? That's what spirituality is all about. Spirituality is all about not being tricked and not falling for the technology and the semantics of the political factions, right? So, like I said, is he talking about this type of stuff right here when he's talking about the manipulation of technological devices and cybersecurity, right? Now, this is where we get into these entities that don't take corporeal form because they live in the lower fourth dimension and the third dimension, which is basically comprised of the demiurge, right? So there's this lady right here. She's a Swiss scientist who claims CERN is working on a secret nuclear program. There is a portal underneath CERN where beings are coming in and out of. Physicists who worked there told her that there are 17 different dimensions of reality, right? And who are those entities? These entities are draconian reptilians who don't take corporeal form, right? Who basically controls the whole infrastructure of the water system, the food industry, and the air within the simulation, right? Because when you're talking about an archon is basically a person who controls the simulation, right? And an archon is a draconian. A draconian is part of the factions of the 200 fallen angels who are basically the 1/3 of the galaxy that went against the order of Anu. So they are basically the cherubim. So when you read this right here, all have been weaponized against you. The water, the food, the air, everything's been compromised within the simulation because, like I said, it's an energy extraction. The simulation is made up of microscopic forms of subatomic energy that sucks the life force out of you, that sucks the loosh out of you, right? All have been weaponized against you to expedite the extermination of the human species. This is 1 million. This is why 1 million children have gone missing, and they are basically the food source. Not just slaves, not just labor slaves. They are given to the beings as a bargaining tool. This is how most world leaders stay in power. The more children they provide, the more perks they receive in higher ranking in government and military and banking and media. This is why your political figures in Washington, D.C. are so valuable to the Archonic forces. So for those who don't understand what an Archon is, I'm going to go to the top. Because the Archon is what controls the cosmic energy grid. See, the Archon are basically the builders of the physical universe, which is a form of a lunar lot-lock energy because they basically put this net of Indria that works in conjunction with the firmament over the planet. It is being used for soul trap mechanisms, right? So the Archons, Draconian Reptilians, are the rulers. They are the rulers of the 7 planets. They prevent souls from leaving the material plane. That's why I said you got to unlock your mental faculties, which is basically your neurological clock of the suprachiasmatic nucleus. You unlock it by activating the melanocyte. The melanocyte is extracted from the neuromelanin. The neuromelanin is the brain and central nervous system melanin, where you activate the Christ consciousness within you. You unlock the 7th seal. So when you unlock yourself, you're not in a state of perpetual state of reincarnation, right? You're not connected to the material plane. This is why the ancients, when you understand transnasal craniotomy, they used to extract the brain from the nose. Why? Because the brain is connected to the simulation. You have a grid over the planet, you have a grid over the brain. That's the holonomic brain theory of the conscious energy grid. So they threw away the brain. The ancient Kemites, they threw away the brain because you don't weigh the brain on the scales of Mayat, you weigh the heart. The heart is the seat of the soul, but the soul enters the body by way of the pineal gland, right? So the brain connects you to the simulation. That's why they threw it away. Because if you have a brain stuck in your head when you basically pass away, they can reincarnate you. This is why some of us, during ancient times, we used to get cremated, right? Now, back to what I was saying, these archonic forces are draconian reptilian, right? As the lady, she said there's entities. This lady right here, she said there's a portal underneath CERN where entities is coming out of 17 different dimensions of reality. And these are the entities. These are archons. Draconian reptilian, who are able to shapeshift, which is basically black draconians who hide in Switzerland, right? So like I said, this is why, this is where it says right here, this is why your political figures in Washington, D.C. are so valuable to the Archonic forces, these creatures. So this is why you see the monument. When you study the doctrine of signatures in the arts of geomancy, you have certain monolithic structures in Washington that's in alignment with the grid system, because these monolithic structures, and they place certain things on the planet to block out the energy to where you don't upgrade your physiology, right? When you're talking about the Vesca Pisces and all these monuments. So now I'm going to show you a video that basically tells you about these Archonic forces. So the reason why we don't see a lot of these Archonic forces is because we can't see beyond the photon-like spectrum, right? And that's only happening because we only using about 10% of our brain capacity. So you can't see a certain photon-like spectrum. So when you activate the non-ether, you activate the right brain, which is comprised of the feminine energy that upgrades your physiology, the activation of the X gene, to where you're able to see multidimensional entities that don't take corporeal form. These entities are around you. You just can't see them, right? So this guy, he basically created a device that basically sees into the demiurge, which is basically the third dimension and the lower fourth dimension, right? So when you activate the Christ consciousness, that means you activate the right brain, right knowledge. That's why I say right. Every time I say right, I'm trying to activate something within you to activate that right knowledge, right? So everything that I say and everything I do, you know what I'm saying, it's a reason, you know what I'm saying? There's a method to my madness. There's a method to everything that I do. So this guy went missing after creating a device to see multidimensional beings. These beings are Draconian reptilian, Archonic forces, cherubim, whatever you want to call them. Extraterrestrials, for those who are captivated by, certain ideologies. So I'm going to play this video.
Few discoveries capture the imagination as profoundly as the concept of entities that exist outside of our realm. Dr. Daniel Nems, a pioneering scientist and researcher, stands at the forefront of this intriguing field. Nems is renowned for his creation of an innovative energy device known as energy vision, which, according to his claims, can photograph these mysterious entities. Dr. Daniel Nems is a scientist with a background in quantum physics and energy research. Nems devoted his career to exploring the intersections of energy, matter, and dimensions beyond our conventional understanding. He soon became fascinated by theories of parallel dimensions and alternate realities. Oddly enough, despite publishing these findings, there is a scarcity of information available on him, and the majority of his work has been wiped from the internet.
Now, notice when you look at some of these entities, they look like insectoids, they look like Draconian reptilian, they look like grays. And the reason I say grays is because grays are basically trying to turn planet Earth into the sixth hybrid race, because grays, they don't have the genetical faculties to basically reproduce. So they got to live through the physiology of humans. So this is why these entities, they manipulate certain individuals who are basically NPCs, and they control them by way of their nervous system, right? They're controlling certain things on the planet.
As a result, some have suggested that shortly after sharing these discoveries, he vanished. Nem's interest in this research was partly inspired by the pioneering work of theoretical physicists who posited the existence of multiple dimensions beyond the familiar three-dimensional space. Driven by curiosity and a desire to push the boundaries of human knowledge, Nems began experimenting with novel energy devices aimed at detecting and interacting with these unseen realms. Energy vision, the groundbreaking device developed by Daniel Nems, represents the culmination of years of research and experimentation. The device combines principles from quantum mechanics, electromagnetism, and advanced imaging technology to purportedly capture images of entities existing in dimensions parallel to our own. Energy vision consists of a sophisticated array of sensors and emitters that generate and detect specific frequencies of electromagnetic energy. These frequencies are theorized to resonate with the energy signatures of these beings, making them visible to the device's sensors. The captured data is then processed by advanced algorithms to produce visual images, which are displayed on a high-resolution screen. The device operates by emitting a controlled burst of energy into a defined area and then scanning the area for any anomalies in the energy field. According to NEMS, these mysterious beings interact with these energy fields in ways that are detectable by energy vision's sensors. The resulting images reveal shapes and forms that do not correspond to any known physical entities, suggesting the presence of beings from other dimensions. If the device's capabilities are validated, the implications for science and our understanding of the universe would be profound. The ability to photograph these entities would provide tangible evidence for the existence of parallel dimensions.
See, facts. So when you're talking about Archons who control the cosmic energy grid system, these are the entities that basically control it. And they can basically control your factions of government, right? They control all your favorite political leaders. Because as I was telling you before, when you read this here, it says that there are more children they provide, and the more children they provide, the more perks they receive in a higher ranking in government, military, banking, and media. Celebrities, right? This is why our political figures in Washington are so valuable to these creatures, right? Because like I said, it's a form of energy harvesting, right? And the reason they do that is because, like I said, who is their god? Their god is basically a archon. When you go to the H1408 Strong Concordance, the word God comes from the word Gad. Gad is Gandriel in the book of Enoch, which is also known as Satan, which is also equated to the god of fortune. So the more you give things to these entities, these archonic forces, the more perks you get. You see what I'm saying? It's like I said, it's an energy exchange. This is why, it's all connected to the mythology of the Canaanite god of Baal and Moloch. Like I said, that is the god of fortune. The more you sacrifice people on the planet, these entities that don't take corporeal form, they feed off that energy. And these celebrities, like I said, this is where you get your whole concept of selling your soul, right? Everything is connected. And I'm just here to make it make sense. So now when you get into, the context of monotheistic religion and theological context, the spiritual kingdom of the dove is basically the epitome of the cosmic shift that basically manipulates the cosmic energy grid. So when you read the keys of Enoch, right, Jerusalem, command from the Orion to open. Remember, I told you that the Lionsgate portal is basically comprised of a trilateral connection of a trinary star system, right? Where you have a red sun, blue sun, and a yellow sun. That basically is in alignment with the pyramids in ancient Kemet, right? So Orion, when you go to the book of Amos, it talks about heaven is in the Orion. So these energies of the Lionsgate portal that open up, that was the energy of the heavens that's reversing the polarity of the cosmic energy grid system as we segue into the year of 2025, which is the 9 year where you have the shift. So Orion to open the earth for the shifting of the consciousness to the Americas, the next home of the dove. The Father's program shifts from Midwest America, from the Middle East, right? So the return of the dove is the return of consciousness. So when you activate that consciousness, that manipulates the Roman occupational government that puts you under ecclesiastical law, which is a canon law because the church and the state is not separate. So it's not a coincidence that it tells you that ecclesiastical laws are prevalent in the United States and may be abolished at any time by the sovereign pontiff, right? Now, this is why ecclesiastical law was basically the inception point of whitewashing our history. So that's why I was showing you this sigil right here. Metaphysics and politics go hand in hand when you understand it. Now, where is it at? Yes, you go from 6 ether to 9 ether. At the bottom of my cursor, this is the beginning points of the Roman occupational government in 1776, which is the demo system of democracy. This demo system of democracy is basically the blueprint to patriarchy. So the patriarchy subjugated the 9 ethers. This is why you see the 6 and the 9. You're going from a shifting process because it's going through a reset. So the 6 represents patriarchy that was created in 1776. The year of 2025 is the 9 year that reverses the polarity of 6 ether, the activation of the 144,000. So the year 2025, well, the year of 1776 is what the beginning points of the whitewashing the face of the dark-skinned people. When you go to Job chapter 9, verse 24, the earth is giving into the basically the Canaanites and the Gentiles, right? And the earth is basically comprised of America, which is actually Turtle Island. Turtle Island was being controlled by indigenous people, but we got taken out of our sovereign capacity because of the ecclesiastical law. So all this works in conjunction with the energy grid system. It's an energy extraction, right? Because a religion in itself, a canon law is when the religion works in conjunction with politics, because the church and the state is not separate. So like I said, everything on the planet is a form of energy extraction, because when you connect yourself to monotheistic religion, the religion in itself is a soul trap. The soul trap is connected to the cosmic energy grid, right? That's why I said in the beginning of the video, I said the Archons built the simulation for soul trap purposes because it's connected to the material plane. This is another way they connect you to the material plane by way of ecclesiastical law and democracy. So it tells you right here in the return of the gods to America, which is basically the 144,000 God race. The 144,000 God race, right, is when you have the reversing of the polarity, where they bring a different knowledge to the planet. And that's going to raise the frequency. That frequency, that octave vibration of truth speaking, is going to activate that Kundalini energy that sits at the base of the spine, right? And it's going to spill into the third or fourth ventricle of the brain, which gives you a Christ consciousness, right? Year of 2025 is the 9 year. So now, this is where you have the activation of New Earth, when you had the forces of light, which is basically the pyramid of light that's connected to the upper 4th dimension and the 9th dimension and other dimensions, that is activated by way of the spirit of Melchizedek, which is basically the epitome of ether, right? So also when you go to Judges 16:9, like I said, it's all about the activation of the 7 chakra channel and the 7th 4th dimension channel and the 7th oath hermetic principles. So you got to unlock the scroll of all, your 7 tablets of destiny, in order to connect with the flower of life within you that breaks free from the hexahedron simulation system, which is the cosmic energy grid. So that basically, this system puts an encryption on your anatomy, because it puts an encryption on your anatomy because it takes away your power. So when you go to Judges chapter 6, verse 23, it tells you that the false leaders, who are the Canaanites and the Philistines, they are the ones who control the simulation by way of the social hand and the political hand at the same time, because they're doing the bidding of the Archons who control the simulation. So now when you get into the numerological standpoint, it tells you in the book of Helaman in chapter 4, it says, I give unto you a sign. And that sign is basically the year of 2025, which is the 9 year. 9 equals finality and completion. And 2025, the year of the serpent, is when you have the Kundalini activation. The Kundalini activation is when the Kundalini energy strikes the pineal gland. So the beginning points of 2020 was the end of the silence in heaven. You add 5 more years, you get the coming of the Son of God, which is ether, the gamma radiation that unlocks the 7th seal when you go to Revelations chapter 8, right? And it says right here verbatim, in the 30 minutes in silence in heaven. And when he had opened the 7th seal, the Aquarius energy of the 7th zodiac, there was a silence in heaven for about half an hour, right? Because one day in the heavens is 1,000 years. So there's a reversal that's going to be taking place when you're talking about the flip, the shifting process, right? So this is why things like this is starting to happen, because this grid system is being manipulated. So you're going to see a lot more flying saucers on the planet, right? And I'm going to show you a video of it.
What? Why isn't my phone focusing? What is happening right now? Where is it going? It's landing. That.
See that?
Um.
So whether you believe it, like I said, you can say it's Marley, you can say it's fake and things of that nature. But you, like I said, you cannot negate that there's entities that don't take corporeal form who live in these lower fourth and lower third dimensions. Like I said, these entities are real. But like I said, it's one of those things where you have to basically rationalize a situation, because if you agree that we live in a prison planet, and a prison planet is being facilitated by the photon-like spectrum that basically collapses light of subatomic energy, you cannot see beyond the visible light spectrum within the simulation. So you cannot see certain things. So if you say that jinns and demons are not real, you're basically saying that extraterrestrials ain't real, right? It tells you in the Bible, you know what I'm saying, when you go to the book of Deuteronomy, they tell you about extraterrestrial entities. It tells you about extraterrestrial entities, and the reason that is because when you go to Deuteronomy, what does it say? In Deuteronomy, it tells you the size of the Nephilim, right? Which is 9 cubits of a man. And 1 cubit of a man is 18 inches. So you take 18 times 9, you get 162 inches. Divided by 12, you get 13.5 feet, right? That is the size of the Nephilim. So where did these 13-foot entities, where did they come from? Did they just pop up out of nowhere, right? These are the Archonic forces that I was telling you about, right? Which are basically the disagreeable Elohim, the ones that went against the order of Anu, right? This is real. So I'm going to play this video right here, and it's basically going to demonstrate on how you got, you got to have a certain genetical codon in order to activate certain things on a planet, and it's going to prove that in this video.
And he's described going in them, and that when he goes in, that only a few people can activate the technology in there, that things light up when these people move in there. And it's exactly what you were saying, that some people have the DNA, but many others don't. He was saying that that only a minority have the DNA, have that ability for these technologies to switch on. And I guess that's, well, when Alex, you said there's 200 million star seeds on the planet. Well, if you kind of calculate, well, we've got like 8 billion people, so 200 million. What's that? That's about 4% or something like that. It's only a small percentage of 8 billion. My math, I need to check my math there, but we're talking a small percentage of the population. But that sounds about right in terms of many of the star seeds do carry the genes within them, or the frequencies to activate these technologies. And I remember JP was saying how much the covert operatives were leaning on him to join the military because they wanted to use him more on these missions. But there were constraints, because as long as he was a civilian, I mean, he told me in 2014 he was taken to one of these surface ships parked above an ark, but he was refused entry. There was an admiral there that said, "No, you can't go because you're a civilian. Get out of here." So eventually he joined, and he went into that ship in the Atlantic Ocean, in the Bermuda Triangle.
So that basically reminds you of the fact that the centripetal and the centrifugal forces come together, unlocks a certain energy, right? And unlocks certain codons to where you're able to tap in to certain portals and things of that nature. So that means that the divine feminine and the divine masculine have to come together in order to reverse the polarity of the system by way of a cosmic convergence. So that's why in the movie Lovecraft Country, they weren't able to walk into certain portals because they didn't have the genetics, only the black woman, right? So this is what he's basically talking about. So when you study the occultic science and things of that nature, they tell you the truth in these movies.
Twice in the last few months. So yeah, they definitely are looking for star seeds. They're looking for people with the right DNA, because the military, whether we're talking about white hats, black hats, they don't have the genetics, so they call on the star seeds that do.
So, like I said, in order to be a star seed, you got to have your physiology has to be made up of 95% stardust, right? Which is basically the epitome of carbon. So this is why it's important to understand, books like this. You know what I'm saying? You got a book called The Melanin, the Basic Guide to Knowledge Itself, written by Baba Lawrence. This is basically giving you the basic codes and the keys to understand what's going on with your genetics, right? So like I said, everybody on the planet has melanin, but everybody doesn't have the light energy spectrum of illustration of melanin. Everybody doesn't have carbon. So you got everything on the planet has melanin, but everybody doesn't have carbon. So you got to read that book right there that basically demonstrates everything that I'm basically saying, right? So now when we get into, remember, I told you, this is why certain, especially Black children, melanated children, whatever you want to call it, like I said, this is why 1 million children have gone missing every year. This is why our political figures are so valuable to these creatures. Because like I said, they control the simulation by a way of a exchange of fortune. They need a certain genetics in order to unlock these portals, right? Because when you understand that the Archonic forces are basically the custodians to planet Earth, right? Meaning that they only have temporal power. They don't have the genetics to ascend, and the people who gave their power to, they don't have the genetics to ascend. So they got to extract the vitality of the chosen ones and the star seeds in order to unlock certain portals in order to escape, right? That means that they're stuck in the lower fourth dimension, these Archonic forces, right? Because in order to leave the simulation, in order to leave their own simulation, what happens is you got to have the energy and the frequency of a soul, right? You can only leave this planet by way of the alignment of the heart chakra, right? Because the heart is how you escape the simulation. They don't have the emotional energy. So that's why everything within Western civilization, as far as technology, it mimics the energy of humans, right? So it's a form of energy extraction. And they upload the neurons from the body from technological radiation into a neuromorphic cyber cloud. So this is why artificial intelligence is being controlled by archonic forces who live by way of the electrical energy of technological devices. They live through, these technologies, basically.
So either one of you want to kind of elaborate more on the genetics and the DNA that's necessary to activate these technologies?
It's like it's a resonance. You need to be at the right frequency to activate the frequency, because you bind with the ship, you bind with the consciousness of the vessel, and there's an interaction, and you can activate it and control it because it's the same frequency, exactly. And I don't know how to explain it better, Alex.
The military is fully aware, both light and dark, that many souls have come back in time to this moment.
We came back. A lot of us starseeds came back because, like I said, we are the chosen ones. We are the chosen ones that basically is turning the tinfoil hat into a crown of knowledge, right? We are turning our tinfoil hat into a crown of knowledge. And the reason I say that is because we are here to break the spell. We are here to break the generational curses that was being facilitated by patriarchy, that is being controlled by the government factions, who are being controlled by the Archons, and the Archons are the ones who controls the cosmic energy grid system. We are here to basically reverse the polarity of the sleep spell, right? So that's why I said we are transmuting our tinfoil hat into a crown of knowledge, unlocking the seventh seal, right?
The frequency of the soul cannot be duplicated. It cannot be copied. Even if you make a clone, it is never the same as the original, ever. And they know that, which is why they spent all this money doing all this dastardly shit, to figure that out. That, when you take out someone and then you try to copy them, it's never the same. So, yeah, in order for some of this technology, which maybe some of us left behind or we interacted with in one lifetime, multiple lifetimes, multiple dimensions. I've told the story about when the A's make a ship. When they're building and growing the ship, before it's actually ready to take off on its first mission, each of the crew gets underneath it and they stand on a lighted platform. They put their hands on the surface, the outside surface of the ship, and a resonant frequency and something comes through their body and it goes into the hull of the ship. Now the ship knows them, so they and the ship are one. The ship is an extension of them, and they in turn are an extension of the ship. Okay? Frequency, holographically, etc. Now, if you're not a member of the crew, you will not get inside that boat, that ship. It isn't going to happen. And it will do everything it can to make sure that you're removed from the equation. You can do that in a multiple of ways. It all depends on how it's programmed. Well, these arcs, they're absolutely no different. And what they're looking for are the people who operated or were part of the crew at this point, because the belief is we can get in there, we can figure out the technology and use it. That may or may not be true either. Because again, when you get to the control panel, it has to be a member of the crew. So they obviously think JP is a member of one of the crews, which is why they're using him. It's absolutely fascinating. It really is.
Well, these arcs seem to be popping up all over our whole system and all over the earth.
And one thing you got to understand about when you're talking about, they're talking about arcs, and these arcs are basically so-called shams or spaceships or whatever. But these ships are basically coming to the planet to bring a certain resonant frequency to upgrade the energy of the planet, to upgrade our physiology. Because these ships contain the same electrical frequency as pyramids, right? So it's going to upgrade the pyramid within your neurological faculties. That's comprised of the trinary brain theory, which is the pituitary gland, the hypothalamus gland, and the pineal gland, right? That works in conjunction with the 3 stars of Utu, Apsu, and Shamash. So these energies of these ships that's coming in, it contains a positive electrical frequency. So it's basically upgrading the consciousness on the planet that unlocks certain things within your neurological faculties, which is basically the brain clock or your neurological clock. So I don't want to show that video no more. So I'm going to give a quick rundown for those coming in. I don't know if I got more slides left. Nope. So for those coming in, now, this video is basically giving you the whole cover story of the fact that you have archonic forces who control the material plane by way of the energy grid system. The cosmic energy grid system is also known as the Draconian reptilian net or the net of Indria. And the reason you have this net over the planet because it creates a cap consciousness. So when you go to the book of Genesis, it talks about the firmament because the firmament works in conjunction with the grid system. The grid is being used to prevent souls from leaving the material plane. as it says right here. So when you understand the arts of geomancy, you have certain monolithic structures on these ley line grid systems that basically subjugates the energy that's coming from the cosmic radiation of gamma radiation or colossal coronal mass ejections. So the energy grid also works in conjunction with the energy grid over the brain. So you have a grid over the planet, you have a grid over your brain. But that's why I said the cosmic clock has to reset. And when the cosmic clock reset, it eradicates the grid. And once it resets, it eradicates the grid over the brain. So you have a clock in the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus that extracts melanocytes. Melanocytes is extracted from neuromelanin. Neuromelanin is the brain and central nervous system melanin. So just like you have brain cells of planet Earth, the brain cells of planet Earth is activated by way of the global atmospheric circulation, which is basically the cosmic intertropical convergence zone that activates polar cells. So the brain cells of planet Earth is connected to your neurological faculties when you understand subatomic energy, right? Because it basically demonstrates that your neurological faculties is connected to the quantum world and the simulation at the same time. So that's why I said you have a clock in the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, right? So when you activate the nucleus by way of the inhabitation and stimulation of the brain, you unlock the seventh seal. That seventh seal connects you to the biorhythm of the planet, because your biorhythm of the planet resets when you have the end of the 24,000 year equinox, which is basically the foundational blueprint of the cosmic clock. The cosmic clock is showing you ontological artifacts all throughout history, giving you that truth. So that's why it shows you the guy right here escaping the firmament. The firmament works in conjunction with the simulation in the cosmic clock and the ley line grid system. So when you're able to leave this plane, you got to reset here when the system resets, because that's when you unlock the seventh seal. The seventh seal is activated in the year of 2025, which is equated to the 9-year, and the 9-year is the year of the snake, and the year of the snake is equated to completion, and completion is finality of the draconic system that was being controlled by the precessional circle of the equinox of the draconian star constellation. Now you have the star Polaris, is the age of light, the true light, the age of Aquarius, that is activated by star Polaris, that gives off these gamma radiations, to where you have that Kundalini activation, which is the cosmic serpent that reverses the polarity of the sixth ether energy, that basically gives you the Kundalini spirit, and that's activated by way of the feminine energy that activates the X gene. When you activate the X gene, that activates the Christ consciousness, which is the right hemisphere of the brain, where you get 90% of your neurological faculties activated. That is connected to the hexadecimal number of the chakra system, which is why you see the number 24, because the 24 of the neurological faculties of the cosmic clock works in conjunction with your neurological clock, which is why there's 24 hours in a day, there's 24,000 years in the equinox. So everything has to reset, and when it resets, you activate the 144,000. When you see 1 + 4 + 4 = 9 = 9 ether. 9 ether in the 9-year collapses everything in the simulation by connecting to your flower of life body, which is the Zohar body, to where you connect with the interconnectedness of everything in everything outside of the simulation that's connected to the Fibonacci sequence of nature and the cycle of creation. So this is all based upon the sanctification process of the transformation of the soul. I don't want to get too deep into it. You just got to watch the video over. So I was just giving you a quick rundown about everything that was going on. So as I was telling you before in the live, this is basically the playoffs to the simulation, right? So whatever they got to do it before the year of 2025. Because like I said, 2025 is the 9-year. 9 is equated to completion, right? To where you transmute that tinfoil hat into a crown of knowledge, right? And that crown of knowledge is the activation of the non-ether energy, the activation of the neuroendocrine transducer, right? So this is why you must deviate from certain individuals who are stuck in a simulation mentally, because this is where you have the delineation of the chosen ones and those who are going to be left behind. Leave those family members behind. Leave those dead relationships behind. Leave those dead friendships behind, right? because all they're going to do is basically extract your energy and use you as a form of a level up as you in a state of subjugation. They pulling on your energy to level themselves up because they don't have the neurological faculties to connect with God, right? To connect with the God within you, right? So this is why you got to get away from certain people. So as the planet is raising up in frequency, you got to raise up in frequency. So get away from people who are basically stealing electrons from your physiology to upgrade themselves, right? So like I said before, we're going to be heading into a time where you're going to have to be by yourself. You got to be by yourself because you got way too many, dark forces on the planet that is compromising certain individuals to basically steal your life force. And they stealing your life force. And a lot of these people come in a form of, family members, companions, and things of that nature. But you got to see beyond the polarity. You got to see beyond the illusion of the beta simulation of reality. Once you see beyond that, you can see these people are very much compromised and manipulated by these entities that control the cosmic energy grid system, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this video is very important. This video is based on astrological artifacts. It's basically giving you all the receipts that's basically showing you what is to come in the near future. So get this book right here. It's giving you the basic, structure and a knowledge of self to unlock those codons within you to where you revert to polarity of the lunar lock frequency. You're reversing the polarity of the sleep spell. You're reversing the polarity of the generational curses that was being controlled by the Archonic forces who created these people who control patriarchy by way of their governmental system. So as the Roman occupational government starts to crumble by way of the activation of the consciousness on the planet uprising, that is the cosmic convergence by going from 6 ether to 9 ether. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, end of transmission.
Ten, 14. We will put an end to this madness.
It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. Karma's gonna get to you and then you'll have a chariot with only one less friend. Now I had distant folks that are looking to my eyes to understand the wisdom he's given and his wealth from the skies. So thanks for this meal that I'm about to receive, and thank you for my health and all the good memories. Thanks for the courage taking on another day when I used to not believe, but now I know about grace. Stay away from the fire cause the flames does burn. Go with your gut feeling, when it's wrong you learn. For every one step I take, the Lord takes two. And do unto others if you want it done unto you. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. This a completion, the selfish Proto-Grecian, Amerindian, Phoenician. I'm the last of the Mohicans, the bastard of the land, the pen, melanin, accretion. And we just trying to get back to the fact that we was kings and queens of a land before the avalanche seized it. I live on Turtle Island with the rest of the diseased. Better than the medicine for 7 different treatments. Niggas try to ride away but end up getting seasick. The sleep can feel my words like Braille and they're awakened with the penmanship of Hindu script written in them vacant monastery honor. Honorary payments to the prototype. Tomorrow's only a day away, but nothing happens overnight. The fuck's wrong with going left when you know it's right? Biting off more than I can chew, that's an overbite. Black on black crime is like watching 2 soldiers fight when all along they was on the same page. History. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land.